a program on family-oriented mealtime strategies, and you're going to help us plan our meals so we don't open the refrigerator and say, what are we going to eat? And I'm just going to turn it right over to you, Jen.
Okay. Let me share this screen. Okay. All right. So welcome. Thank you for joining the program this evening. Tonight's topic is all about family-oriented mealtime strategies. And I just want to preface the whole topic by saying that we're not just talking here about families with young kids at home, right? So that can kind of be the first thought that comes to mind. And certainly that comes with its own unique set of challenges, right? Having a whole family with young kids to feed. But in this presentation, I'm going to intentionally talk about some common mealtime challenges that anyone can face, right? So it doesn't matter if your family includes young kids, older kids, no kids, even if it's just you. There are a lot of common mealtime challenges that all of us, that all of us face, and we're going to address strategies and tips for those mealtime challenges throughout this program tonight. So our learning objectives, first we're going to talk about some of the benefits of family mealtime, because it can be easy to kind of throw in the towel sometimes and say, well, I just, as long as everyone eats, right? Just get everyone fed and it doesn't really matter. But there are benefits to actually having a real sit-down family meal, right? Around the table, eating together, eating presently, right? Eating mindfully. So we're going to dive into that. And then we'll identify common challenges and struggles around family mealtime, and then learn strategies and tips for making mealtime more seamless, less stressful, and maybe even fun. So just a brief introduction of myself, just so you know who's here talking to you. My name is Jen Leese, and I'm a registered dietitian. I'm also trained in health supportive culinary arts, so I am a certified chef. In my time as a registered dietitian, I've had experience in the clinical setting, community nutrition, and in corporate wellness. And in 2019, I went into business for myself, and that's Chef Girl Nutrition. So I offer personalized one-on-one nutrition counseling, mostly around mindful eating and helping you become a more mindful eater and ultimately move away from dieting and learn how to nourish yourself properly without relying on fad diets. I offer individual and group cooking classes, culinary nutrition workshops, and also do some recipe development. And just to give you a bit more on the background of Chef Girl Nutrition, and my mission really is, with all the noise out there, all of the nutrition information, right? There's so much misinformation, so much baseless information. And so it can feel incredibly confusing to know what to eat. So my main mission is to simplify all of it, to simplify the nutrition science, to bring you honest, evidence-based information, and really help you translate that to real life. And that's a main point of our topic this evening, right? Is talking about real life. How am I going to, make nutritious meals that, also are tasty, and how am I going to actually make that fit into my busy lifestyle? And I'm also really passionate about erasing the stigma that healthy food is bland and boring, right? And that you need to spend hours in the kitchen to create nutritious and delicious meals. So there's a lot of stigmas around healthy eating, thinking that it's more expensive, that it takes more time, that it's this or that, right? That if you're going to eat healthy, you have to give up your favorite foods. And so part of my mission is just really erasing those stigmas, right? Busting some of the myths that are out there about healthy eating and about nutrition, and just, like I said, bringing you honest, honest real life information. So diving into our topic, right? So family mealtime. So like I prefaced at the start here, we're not just talking about a family with young kids at home. We're talking about whatever family looks like to you, and just having that sit down mealtime, right? And that's what we're really going to be focusing on, is the challenges around that. Just having, a less stressful, less chaotic, more seamless mealtime. So why is family mealtime important? There's research on this, right? So research shows that eating dinner as a family regularly at home can lead to, and before we dive into that, I just want to point out that this says eating dinner as a family regularly, right? So it's not just if you can fit it in once a month, right? Or even once every 2 weeks, or even once a week, right? We're talking about trying to really have dinner together as a family at the kitchen table a few times a week, right? Maybe 3-4 times a week. This can lead to more fruit and veggie consumption and healthier food choices overall, lower rates of obesity for both children and adults, higher self-esteem in kids, as well as lower rates of substance abuse, teen pregnancy, behavioral problems, and depression, better body image and fewer eating disorders, better grades, higher reading scores, and better vocabulary. And this is something that research shows over and over again. So these particular facts on this slide and the next come from Harvard University's Family Dinner Project, which is a great resource if you want to visit that site. But research shows us these results over and over again. So even with these benefits of family mealtime, right, only 30% of families manage to eat together regularly. And about 70% of meals are consumed outside the home. And of that, 20% are eaten in the car, right? So picturing fast food, on-the-go meals. And about 50% of American families rarely have family dinner at all. Also, budget patterns. So looking at American spending habits are showing more of the food budget going towards meals eaten out than on groceries to prepare meals at home. So the ultimate mealtime goal, right, which may be like a fantasy, right? It's having the whole family sitting together at the kitchen table each night, passing the dishes around to take a serving of everything. There's chatter and laughter, catching up with each other. Everyone is engaged and polite. And after the meal, the big thing, everyone has a hand in cleaning up, right? So that can kind of be our kind of fantasy ideal of what we want the ultimate family mealtime to look like, right? But this just is not realistic for most of us, or at least not most of the time, right? And so when we're talking about having family mealtime regularly, we need to talk about how we can do that in a realistic, reasonable, sustainable way, right? So maybe you get this kind of meal once a week, or once every 2 weeks, or once a month. But we want to really dive into what's more realistic for us, right? Because this really might not be realistic for everyone. And something else that's really important to point out is that this kind of mealtime goal is a very privileged kind of situation, right? And for many Americans, the goal is simply to have access to food, to have access to nutritious food. So I do just want to point that out, that this is certainly a sort of privileged view of what family mealtime can look like. But that's what we're going to be talking through the rest of the program, is looking at, you have access to food, right? And we're really talking about how to put that food into a meal, bring it to the family, bring it to the table, and have the whole family around the kitchen table to enjoy that meal together. So more realistically, we just want to cook a meal that doesn't take hours, have less dishes to clean, have everyone eat without complaining, not have to think about what to make, and have the meal be somewhat healthy, but also tasty, right? So you want to, if you're the main cook in your home, you want to cook a meal that is going to be nutritious for your family, but you also, again, don't want to hear everyone complaining about, this broccoli and whatever. So you want it to be nutritious, but you also want it to be something that everyone enjoys. And so these are some of our more kind of realistic goals around mealtime. there is no perfect family mealtime, right? And just kind of getting rid of that, idea of perfection, right? Because in general, whenever we're chasing perfection, we're bound to be let down, right? So there is no perfect family mealtime, right? That kind of ideal goal that we were looking at, that's more of a fantasy that, it's great if it happens, but we're looking more so at our realistic, busy lifestyles, right? There's no perfect family mealtime, but there are certainly things that we can do to make it a little bit easier on ourselves. So some of the most common mealtime challenges that, like I said, is for any family, right? Whatever that looks like to you, whatever your home situation is for your meal times, we all share some very common challenges. Lack of a plan, right? And cooking on the cuff, cooking, in the moment, different and or unpredictable schedules, different food preferences in the house, right? And feeling like a short order cook, like you're cooking 4 different meals for everyone in the house. That's something that I experience with my partner. He and I have different food preferences. And so that's something that I take into consideration. It's certainly a little bit easier. It's just him and I that I'm cooking for, but different food preferences. Another thing to say here would be having picky eaters at home can certainly be a major mealtime hurdle. Distractions at home, right? So thinking about all, this is growing with technology, right? So we have phones, laptops, iPads, TV, video games. There's a million things that can distract us now from meal times. So maybe you do have the whole family around the table, but half of the family is sitting there on their phones, right? And part of, those benefits that we discussed, the benefits of sitting, with your family at the table for mealtime, those benefits come also from being present during that mealtime, right? So it's not just the act of sitting there together and eating the meal, but it's being present with each other. It's having that social connection with your family. So those distractions at home can be a real stress, and especially if you're the one who's cooking and you've just spent time putting together, a thoughtful meal for your family, and then no one's really appreciating it, that can feel that can make you a little bit resentful, right? And that can certainly make you not want to cook. So that can be a mealtime challenge for a lot of different reasons. And having a lack of help at home, right? So feeling like either you don't have anyone at home that really can help you, or maybe you're a bit like me and you have difficulty delegating tasks in the kitchen. So we're going to dive into all of these and strategies that can address these different mealtime challenges. So the first mealtime strategy is to plan, and plan some more. So while it may not be a super super exciting strategy, planning is the best tool that you can use to make meal times easier, to take away some of the stress and to take away some of the decision making during the week, so that you're not making decisions about what to eat in the moment, right? Maybe it's dinner and your work day ran a little bit late and you have nothing planned for dinner, and now you're rushing into the kitchen and feeling all this pressure to put dinner together, and everyone's complaining because they're hungry, and it just creates a very chaotic, stressful environment. So planning ahead has a ton of benefits, and we're going to dive into that. Prepping. So similarly to planning, right? Once you've got the plan, if you can do a little bit of prep work, it will take you a very long way during the week. Keeping it simple, make it fun and enticing, and setting realistic goals and expectations, right? So this is kind of what I mentioned a couple slides ago. Yeah.
Join the meeting.
Oh, someone joined me.
Just want to make sure, I always recommend squeezing the lemon into a separate container,
Okay, sorry about that. And setting realistic goals and expectations, right? So we addressed this a couple slides ago, that setting realistic goals, right? Being realistic about what actually is possible for you and your family is going to really be key as well. So number one, plan. So meal planning can sometimes have this, kind of stigma, or get a bad rap for, feeling like you need to spend a ton of time planning. You have to plan a bunch of intricate meals, and really all planning is, it's just a tool to make your life a little bit easier. So rather than seeing it as like a chore that you have to do, like sit down and, make the plan and it feels boring, think of it as something that is giving you your time back during the week. It's taking some mental stress away, right? It's taking some of that mental toll off of you during the week. And so even a loose plan can help. So it does not have to be a super intricate plan. It can be a really loose plan of, we're going to have a pasta night on Monday and we're going to have a taco night on Tuesday. Just kind of having an idea of what you're going to make. Just knowing, right? Just having an idea so that you're not making those decisions in the moment. And you're going to there are 2 resources that go along with this program tonight, and they'll be posted, or they are posted, on the Oceanside Library website. And one of them is my meal planning guide. So that kind of walks you through how to meal plan in a way that works best for you. So you get to decide the rules, right? You get to decide what kind of plan is going to most benefit you. And we're going to dive into, as we get further through this, dive into some factors that can play, that can play a role in you deciding what your meal plan should look like. So like I said, it can relieve weekday decision making. And beyond that, it can help you stick to your healthy eating goals, right? And it can help you be more efficient with grocery shopping because you know what you need, right? You've planned out the majority of your meals. You know what ingredients you need, so you can save money. You can save time, right? So you're not just wandering through the grocery store. And it can help decrease food waste because you're buying ingredients that you're going to use versus saying, oh, I think that maybe I'll use this. I'll buy this just in case, right? And then it just ends up spoiling in your refrigerator and it goes in the garbage. So having a plan can help in a multitude of ways. You can also use your plan so that you can plan to have nutritious snacks on hand. And this is not just because we're talking in the context of meal times. Think about what happens when you don't have a plan and you're trying to cook in the moment. You're hungry, your family members are hungry, everyone's getting hangry, right? There's crankiness going on. So one, having the plan can help avoid that, not knowing what you're going to make. But 2, you can also plan to have healthy snacks on hand so that if you are cooking and you are hungry, you're not just grazing and kind of noshing on anything that you find and ruining your appetite, right? You can, have some sliced veggies in the fridge and some hummus or another dip of your preference. Have fresh fruit in the fridge, have some nuts on hand, anything like that you can reach for. That either you can eat or you can, have your kids eat to kind of keep everyone at bay while you're making dinner that night. You can also use your plan so that you can plan to have leftovers to use in other meals. So planning ahead allows you to say, okay, I'm going to, maybe you're going to double a recipe so that you have 2 meals out of it that you can use leftovers either for lunches or to have as a, second dinner that week. And then from your plan, you're able to create a prep list and create tasks. And by having those prep tasks, you can know ahead of time, how can your kids help you out? How can other family members help you out, right? So you can kind of know like, oh, I can have my kids help me with this task versus doing that in the moment. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more and what that really means. And so this is just an image of the actual meal planning template that's in the guide that I'm providing for you. And like I said, the guide actually walks you through how to do this, but this is what, kind of a general meal planning template can look like, where you can fill in your 3 meals for each day, and then at the bottom include whatever snacks you're going to have on hand. Number 2 is to prep, right? So just like meal planning gets kind of a bad rap, so does meal prep. And all meal prep is doing something with the food, right? With the ingredients that you bring home to make it more meal ready. So prep doesn't have to mean, giving up your entire Sunday to prep fully, intricate meals, fully composed meals. It's just doing something, right? Doing something that gives you some of the time back during the week. So prepping things ahead of time, like large batches of grains or veggies, proteins. You can cook up big batches of rice or another grain of your choice. Cook up a big sheet tray of roasted veggies, or maybe just chopping your veggies, right? Just taking them you bring them home from the grocery store and you just chop them up as soon as you get home so that they're more meal ready, right? That's taking a big step off of, taking a big task off your plate during the week if your veggies are already chopped and just ready to cook. You can use the freezer. So like I mentioned with planning ahead to have leftovers, maybe you plan ahead and you plan ahead to double a recipe and half of it goes right into the freezer, right? And using your freezer gives you ready meals that you can defrost for lunch, for dinner. You can put grains in the freezer. I would say that more foods than not are freezer friendly. So using your freezer can be a real time saver and can really help you have some meals on hand that you just have to defrost and reheat. So like I said, take off some of the pressure of what you might think meal prep is and think of it as just helping you a little bit, right? Do what helps you the most. So maybe it's just prepping ingredients without preparing all the meals entirely, right? Like I said, maybe it's just chopping up the veggies so that you can just toss them into a salad, or you can just cook them because they're already cut up, and that takes a task off of your plate. Think of things like one pot dishes, right? And this is something that you can plan to make a one pot, a one pan, a one sheet tray dish. These are great because they're easier to prepare because you only need to use one pan, right? Instead of having maybe like 3 different things that you're kind of cooking all at once. Plus it makes the cleanup easier. And dishes like these, soup, stews, casseroles, chili, these kinds of dishes all freeze really well too. So you can make big batches of things like this and put some of it in the freezer right away. So just really kind of being more strategic with your meal planning can really help in just making meal times easier. So how can we keep it simple? You can use a sort of formula for your family's favorite meals. And so what do I mean by that? Right? So while it's great to add variety, it's also great to stick with what works. So if you know that there is a kind of meal that your family all really enjoys, it goes over well, it's easy for you to make, it's kind of like a go-to, and you can use that formula and vary it week to week, right? So maybe you switch up the grain, maybe you switch up the veggies, maybe you use a different kind of protein, but the general formula for the meal stays the same. So rather than trying, if you're always going to a cookbook when you're doing your meal plan and you choose 5 new dishes, right? 5 new recipes to make in 1 week, that's going to feel really overwhelming unless you have the time and you really enjoy doing that, right? But if we're talking more so a busier lifestyle and you don't necessarily have the time to be, exploring and getting creative in the kitchen, then you want to stick to what you know works, right? Don't try to change too much all at once. So trying 1 new recipe a week is great, but maybe don't do that every night, right? Don't choose meals that all take over an hour to prepare for every night of the week. Maybe try 1 or 2 new dishes a week and then keep your go-to meals in the rotation, right? Stick to what works. And this goes for picky eaters too. introducing a new veggie in a familiar meal, right? So this all kind of wraps in together, that you don't want to change too much all at once. And if you have a picky eater at home and that creates a lot of frustration for you, try introducing new foods in a familiar meal, right? So rather than putting something totally new, right? You got creative and tried a new dish, which is awesome. And you should still, work to kind of practice your creativity in the kitchen. I'm all for that. But like I said, just trying not to do too much all at once and overburdening yourself. And then this is huge, using convenience foods as needed. So convenience foods get a bad reputation also as being unhealthy, but that's because we're thinking of convenience foods as fast foods, right? As things that we're grabbing on the go that aren't necessarily the healthiest option. But convenience to me means it's a convenient food, right? So it's closer to being edible, right? It's closer to being meal ready than starting from scratch. It's a shortcut. So that includes things like this: canned, frozen, par cooked, prepared foods, right? Canned beans, partially cooked grains, bottled, jarred sauces, condiments, pre-chopped produce, right? This might be more costly than buying whole produce, but that might be a trade-off that's worth it to you. Rotisserie chickens can be a great protein during the week. And depending on how many mouths you're feeding, a rotisserie chicken can give you you can get a ton of meals out of one rotisserie chicken. And I, on my Facebook page, and I'll put the link up at the end of this program, but on my Facebook page, the Chef Girl Nutrition Facebook page, I go live every week and I do either a cooking demo or kind of talk about some kind of, hot topic in nutrition. And I recently did a video on convenience foods because, especially in this past, over a year during the pandemic, there's been a lot more reliance on convenient foods, right? And people are getting tired of cooking so much at home. Some of these convenience foods can be cheaper. And so I just really wanted to kind of debunk that stigma around what convenience foods are. They're just shortcuts, and you should absolutely rely on them as needed to make your life easier and to make meal times easier. So there's nothing wrong with, I'm not making a homemade sauce every night. I'm using jarred tomato sauce, right? That's a convenience food. So really just, relying on those as needed and not thinking any less of it because it's, canned or jarred or whatever. And then making mealtime fun and enticing. So there's a few ways that we can make a mealtime more fun and enticing for our other family members, right? To get everyone involved in the mealtime. Because the mealtime doesn't have to just be the act of sitting at the table and eating a meal, but it's the whole kind of process, right? The whole process of cooking the meal, right? And then sitting down and eating it together. So you can get your family members involved, right? Get your kids involved, get your partner or your spouse involved. And so this was something that I brought up with planning ahead, right? So if you're planning your meals ahead and you're able to kind of plan for what you'll need to prep ahead, you can plan for things to get your kids involved in the kitchen or to get your partner involved in a kitchen in a way that doesn't disrupt you, in a way that doesn't make you feel more stressed. Picture that you're in the kitchen, right? If you have young kids at home, or maybe they're grown now, but when they were little, you can be in the kitchen trying to prepare a meal and they're off doing something and you're worried about what they're doing and it's distracting you from cooking and it's making cooking feel stressful and chaotic because you don't know what they're doing, right? So if they're in the kitchen with you, then you're getting them involved in the process, you're keeping them busy, but you're able to know what's going on and hopefully make the cooking experience a bit more relaxing. And another way to make that happen happen is if you know exactly what they can do to help you, right? So that they're not like nagging you while you're in the kitchen and you're like, leave me alone, I'm cooking, I'm trying to get dinner on the table. If you know exactly what they can do to help you and they come into the kitchen and you can say, hey, why don't you mix this up in the bowl for me? Or I need help measuring this. Can you help me measure these ingredients, right? And giving them age appropriate tasks to do. Plus, it's a huge benefit for kids to get involved in the kitchen from a young age. And it's a really good way to help avoid a picky eater, is by getting them involved in the kitchen, getting them involved in cooking, really talking about food with them. Also during the actual mealtime, talking to them about, flavors and textures and smells, the feel of foods, and starting to get them really familiar with different kinds of foods. And this is my favorite. This is my favorite thing to talk about. And this is one of the major strategies that I work with my private clients on, especially those with families, is making buffet style meals. This can be a really great strategy to make mealtime not just a little bit more simplified, but also fun. So a buffet style meal means that you're still preparing just one meal, right? So this kind of addresses that short order cook feeling of feeling like you have a bunch of different food preferences at home and you're trying to accommodate all of them and feeling like you need to cook 3 different meals. So in this case, you're still preparing just one meal, but you're keeping the components separated and serving it in a buffet style. So everyone in the family is able to come and create their own version of that meal. And this has so many benefits aside from making mealtime a little bit easier. It promotes autonomy, right? So especially for your kids, it gives them this feeling of ownership over their meal, right? So even though you're the one who prepared and cooked all of the ingredients, they're now actually assembling their meal. And that can give them a lot of confidence and feel creative in the process of putting a meal together. So just to give you an idea of, some meals that work really well for this is grain bowls. And that is the recipe that you're going to get also. So that's the second resource for this program that will be on the Oceanside Library website, is for a shredded barbecue chicken brown rice bowl. So grain bowls are one of my favorite meals to make because, like I mentioned before, it's like a formula for a meal that you can keep using over and over and over again and just change up the components of it. So you have a whole grain as a base. You have some sort of protein. You have 2 or 3 different veggies. You have some sort of sauce or dressing. And then you have some toppings, avocado, nuts, seeds, cheese, right? Things like that. And the options are truly endless, right? You can keep making different kinds of bowls, different kinds of combinations, and easily switch it up, easily get some variety in your diet. Taco bars are really great for something like this. Pizza night, right? So everyone putting their own toppings on, you can have like mini pizzas and everyone puts their own toppings on the pizza, and then they all go into the oven together. And, once in doing this, it also kind of motivates everyone to then sit down at the table together, right? Now we've all put this yummy, we've all put our own, twist on our meal, and we all have this delicious meal to go enjoy. And it kind of motivates everyone to go sit at the table together and enjoy that meal together. And then if you are alone, right? Or maybe it's just you and your partner cooking, play music, listen to a podcast, listen to a book on Audible, call a friend, right? I do this with my mom sometimes. We're far apart. She's in New York and I'm in Colorado, and sometimes we'll get on the Amazon Alexa portal, with the video, and we'll be video chatting with each other in the kitchen while we're cooking together. So that can be a lot of fun. So do things that make it fun and that make that mealtime feel like more of a fun activity and not just a chore. Cooking for ourselves This is something, where I like to kind of flip the script a little bit and change the mentality around cooking, because so many people feel that cooking is a chore. But cooking for yourself, cooking for your family is a way for you to be in control over what goes into your body, right? There are a lot of things in our world, in our environment, that we certainly can't control. But the food that you eat is something that you can. And so I always say, it's empowering. Cooking for yourself, cooking for your family, taking that into your own hands, deciding what you're eating, that's empowering. That's a way for you to actually be in control of one aspect of your health, right? And one aspect of your well-being. Okay, and then I would say that aside from planning and prep, this is the most important thing. This doesn't just go for meal times. We need to set realistic goals and expectations, because we know as humans, right, that if we set expectations that are beyond what's realistic, we're setting ourselves up to be disappointed, right? And if you're setting yourself up to be disappointed, cooking is always going to feel like it's not worth it, or you're going to feel resentful of it, because you're not getting the results that you are expecting, when those results are actually not even really attainable. So some things to think about when setting realistic goals and expectations around meal times. So which meal is actually the most realistic to get the family all together for mealtime, right? As I'm talking through this, I'm mostly, kind of referring to dinner, because dinner is the most common meal for families to enjoy together, right? Because it's usually the meal that the whole family is home for. But that doesn't mean that that's the most realistic meal for your family. Maybe it's breakfast. Maybe everyone's home in the morning, but in the evening, your schedules are more sporadic and it's actually harder for you to have dinner together. So maybe you can work on breakfast. Or with all the working from home and the school at home, maybe lunchtime has kind of become a family meal for you. So really choosing that meal that's most realistic for you to enjoy a family mealtime, and then working towards implementing those strategies on that meal, right? So, okay, breakfast is actually most realistic for us. So what can we do to make breakfast actually happen? What can we do to actually make this, for us to actually have, even just 20 minutes to sit around the table together and enjoy our breakfast? How many days of the week is a family meal realistic, right? So it's unrealistic probably for 99% of us to have 7 days of the week having a family, having a real sit down family meal around the table. So I would always recommend setting your expectation a bit lower, right? And then if you happen to do more, then that's great, right? And then that's a win. So maybe saying, okay, 3 days of the week is really what's most realistic. And then on a week that you get 4 days, or maybe you get the whole, work week, the whole 5 days together, that's awesome. But you want to set that expectation to be realistic, right? So that you're not, so that you're not anticipating something that is just truly not going to be attainable. How much time is there available to cook? And this ties back into the planning and the meal prep, right? Because this can vary week to week. So when I talk about how meal planning and meal prep, right, there's no one right or wrong way to plan or prep. You have to do what works for you, and that can vary week to week, right? Tying in that we all have busy schedules and unexpected things that come up, right? So week to week, you might have 1 week where, there's no, you don't have any, late work meetings, or there's less after school activities, or whatever it is that allows more opportunity for the family to actually gather together for dinner. And then on another week, you might know that, wow, I have, 3 late nights at work this week. Maybe your husband's not going to be home 3 nights of the week. Your kids have a lot of after school activities that week, and you know that you just are not going to have time. So if you know that you're not going to have a lot of time during the week, then maybe you want to do more meal prep, right? So maybe you want to make your meal plan a little bit more developed, right? That you want to know more details about the meals. You want to be really more prepared because you know that you're not spending any more than 20 or 30 minutes each night cooking dinner. So you want to prep more, right? Maybe that is a week that you want to spend more time on Sunday preparing fully assembled meals rather than just prepping some ingredients, versus a week that you have more time available. You have more flexibility to just kind of prep some ingredients and then get more creative during the week. And maybe that's a week that you want to try, a new recipe instead of sticking with your go-to meals. So really kind of looking at that and looking ahead to the week when you're sitting down to meal plan, look ahead to your week first. Look ahead to what your time looks like. How much time realistically do you actually have available to cook during the week? And then asking for help, right? Share the responsibilities. If you're the main cook at home, it can feel hard to do that. I'm a little bit of a control freak in my own kitchen. So, I know that I will ask for my partner to come and help me, and he will be great, and he'll come and he'll try and help me, and I kick him out of the kitchen like 2 minutes later because I'm like, all right, you're in my way, get out of here, right? And I know that that's a very common thing that happens. We think that we want help, and then when someone comes to help, we're upset that they're not doing it the way that we want, and we shoo them away. And that can happen with your partner, right? With your kids, whoever it is at home. But that puts a lot of burden on you, and it can make you feel resentful of family mealtime, right? It can make you feel like you're slaving away in the kitchen all night and no one's appreciative of the meal. And that can quickly lead to cooking burnout. And we don't want that, right? So asking for help and sharing the responsibility. And like I said, when we're talking about family mealtime, we're not just talking about the act of sitting and eating, but that process of actually making the meal. And that's a really great thing to do together. So, like we were mentioning before, you can plan ahead for what tasks you can sort of delegate to other people in your household that maybe you feel comfortable with, right? Like somebody can definitely toss a salad, right? That's something that you can let control go for, right? Here, you can toss this salad, or ask someone else to set the table, ask someone else to clean the dishes, whatever it is. If you're the main cook at home, you don't want meal times to feel stressful, because it's a really good way to never want to cook, right? To never want to make a family meal because you feel underappreciated, or you feel resentful of your family members, you feel resentful of cooking, and that's not a place that you want to be. So this is the recipe. Like I mentioned, this is on the Oceanside Library website along with the meal planning guide. So the recipe is a shredded barbecue chicken brown rice bowl. And so, like I said, these bowls, right, grain bowls, are a really cool way to have this sort of meal formula that you can customize week after week after week. With switching up all these different components, right? Serving it buffet style, and then everyone can kind of choose what they want or don't want, right? So if like on this barbecue chicken brown rice bowl, I give you a couple of different veggies to toss in there, so you can keep all the different components separate, right? And then everyone can pick and choose what they want. And if you do have kids at home, this is a good place to step back a little. As the parent, it's your responsibility to provide the food, to provide the options, and then it's up to your child to choose what to eat. So this is like I said, because it gives them this autonomy in actually choosing the ingredients that they want to eat, they might actually be more likely to choose something that if you had just served it to them on a plate, they might have been like, ew, I'm not eating that. But because they get the autonomy to choose which ingredients to add, you might be surprised at what they actually choose to put into their bowl. So I'm a huge proponent of these buffet style meals, especially for families. And that's a strategy that I work with families, who are private clients of mine. That's a strategy that I help them implement very often because I see success with it so much. And it's also a great way to learn how to assemble a balanced meal, right? Because we're adding a whole grain, right? So we have our starch, we're adding protein, we're adding our veggies.
Anybody else have any questions?
And we're adding, we're adding our veggies, we're adding healthy fats, maybe, as toppings, avocado or nuts and seeds. So this is a great way to just learn in general how to build a balanced meal. So make sure you grab that recipe and, then kind of use it as a way to change it up, right? As a way to customize it. You can make it as simple a swap as turning it from shredded barbecue chicken to shredded buffalo chicken, right? And just switching the sauce. And now it's become like a totally different meal. So that's all that I have on this topic. And so I'm opening it up to any questions that you have. I'll leave this up here for a minute. So you can connect with me outside of this program on my website, which is chefgirlnutrition.com. On Facebook, like I mentioned, that's a great place to join me because I go live every week, or mostly every week, on Tuesdays doing a cooking demo. So you can join my Healthy Cooking Community Facebook group, totally free, or email me directly at jennifer@chefgirlnutrition.com. And I always love to hear from you. Any questions that come up, you can definitely reach out to me there.
Jen, that was great. I learned a lot of things that I'm definitely going to be using.
Good.
And I just wanted to tell everybody that your next program will be Monday, June 14th at 7 p.m. And it's going to be how to utilize seasonal foods to support your health. And that sounds like we're going to learn a lot as well.
Yes, and in that class also we will have a cooking demo. So I'll have a recipe that focuses on some seasonal ingredients for summer, since it will be June. So that will be a lot of fun.
That sounds great. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you soon.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.